D in Iowa. She wants to talk about the fundamentalist religion is the enemy of science. The poll pushes back against forcing religion into our schools. Hi, Dee. How are you?
Hey, Kelley. Hello, almost a doctor. I don't think you are a doctor. Just accomplished that. Congratulations. Very good. Very good.
Thanks. Yes, I think I need to come up with a new name.
Now a doctor.
It doesn't have the same ring.
Be like, actually, I am a doctor. Anyway, so I've been thinking about science, how it really is under attack, and has been, since the first Trump. It's become politically expedient to bash science and scientists and the scientific method. And I can't help but compare. I have no idea what the era is, like in medieval times, or I think it would have been medieval times, possibly, when the Arab world was, kind of the masters of science and mathematics and things like that. And then eventually fundamentalists took over. And now they are, now they're beheading people on state TV and oppressing women and not even allowing them to learn to read. The great minds in the Arab world contributed so much to our current knowledge, and now they are so oppressed, and I see that happening in our country right now, and it scares me. It really does. And the cuts that are being made to our government, just wholesale slaughter of funding, is basically the first real shot in the war. And I want to see people stand up for science and push it. And, maybe not put it up on a poster in the Sunday school class, but maybe sell T-shirts saying that and get kids to wear it to Sunday school or whatnot. I don't know, but it's disturbing to me, and I wondered what you guys thought about it.
Matt, you want to go first?
I mean, I can. And the issue with this one is it's, one, not a new problem, but there's also, I don't think, one good solution. I wish there was a nice, easy answer to this. What you're mentioning with the Arab world, well, it's one of those things. I just want to go back a second, talk about that. One of the things I hate is when people say that Western civilization came up with modern science, or, as I'm sure a lot of people here have heard before, Christianity or Christians came up with it. It's not. The history of science is really, really nuanced. Some of the earliest forms go, as far back, even further than the ancient Persians. The Greeks sort of got a lot of their engineering, their ideas of science from that era. And of course, I'm only limiting this to a few parts of it as well, where they would have had influence from elsewhere. So I'm kind of oversimplifying for the sake of time. But then, the Romans got from the Greeks, they improved it. And then the Arab world, particularly when they took over the Byzantines, the Eastern Roman parts, took a lot of their engineering as well. So there's a lot of overlap. And what you're mentioning is quite correct. What happened is, within basically a single generation, the Islamic world went from being in a sort of golden era of science and education, where Christians, Muslims, and even non-believers, atheists, could work side by side in the major cities, to within basically a generation becoming to going almost into sort of a dark age that they still, I would argue, have not recovered from. There are very, very few papers published from the Middle East compared to same populations in other parts of the world. Now, that's not to say they don't do science. There are some areas they're pretty good at, but yeah, it's one. And so this is not a new problem. It's not just shown up in the US. You're quite right. And so have to be very careful with how we deal with it. It's always, I think, going to be an ongoing fight, like any major issue. And so, as I said, it's a bit hard to say that there's one solution. And I get the feeling where you want to sort of have on shirts, I actually trust science. But that's I would probably have it a little different in terms of the way I'd phrase it. I trust in the scientific method, rather than just plain I trust science, which, yes, very slight difference, but it's more about the way that you have to approach it. You don't want to try and replace the pseudoscience, the politics, the fundamentalist way of thinking and just put a label of science over it. No, you want to actually change the base framework that people have in terms of how they view the world, which is not easy. And you have to be careful. But I think the only true approach is to have as many different approaches, many different angles as possible, because not everyone is going to respond the same way. And that could be everything from shows like this to documentaries to making sure teachers, because one of the things that even I've noticed because I teach everywhere from late high school to senior chemistry, that particularly early on when people are starting to learn, say, physical processes in the lab, makes a huge difference to what they're like later on. And so I think some of it is making sure that we're starting from a good point. And when it comes to science communication, narratives, metaphors can be really good for that. But science argues from the general to the specific. So you come up with maybe general rules, general laws to cover this is how the physics operates, and then you might look at a specific case. But a lot of communication, a lot of narratives go the opposite way. And the literature does sort of back this up in that a lot of narratives you think of a story will argue from the specific to the general, if you think about pretty much any movie with like the good guys versus the bad guys. And so the way you have to approach this sort of this nice balance, you want to make sure that you have that narrative structure, because psychologically it's really powerful, but you need to make sure that it's done with that balance in mind, that you don't misrepresent what the scientific method is. Because again, if you get the occasional fact wrong, I don't have a problem with that in and of itself. I think the issue is making sure that people understand the process behind it. And I think we lost
Dee there, unfortunately.